Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for round about the next 45 minutes. We're looking at just one part of our management reports webinar series. This afternoon, though, we're specifically looking at the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. So, as I say, I'll spend around about 45 minutes looking at that. Now, just before we get stuck in, for those of you that may be new to our webinars, as usual, you don't need a microphone. If you've got one, it'll be muted automatically. So if you have any questions for us today, you will need to pop them into the questions panel. So if you see something in the background, or maybe you just don't get something, you're not sure about something that we cover, then pop a comment or a question in that questions panel. To access that, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon. When you do that, you'll have access to that box in the corner there. Pop in your question or your comment. Remember to click send, otherwise we won't see that, and we'll try and get an answer to you. So we're joined today by Abby and Jackie. They'll be on hand throughout answering those questions. So you may get a simple, straightforward answer. You may get a link to one of our help articles, or if it's a bit more complex, they may refer you across to our support team, so to get in touch via that way. There is an opportunity to download a copy of today's slides. There will be a link included for the slides on your follow-up email as well. So if you forget that, or you've lost them, then just watch out for that follow-up email. On the follow-up email, it will include a link to the recording of this afternoon's session, along with a link to register for our other webinars, not only in the series, but our other webinars that we run as well, and also a link to access our recording. So you'll receive that round about an hour after we finish, so do watch out for that. Now, if this is your first of the management report webinars that you are attending today in the series, you may be attending some next week as well. These are the topics that we're actually offering. So on Monday we ran nominal records. This morning Jackie ran you through working with the chart of accounts. Obviously we're running session 3 this afternoon. Tomorrow we're looking at running management reports. So running your profit and loss beyond the end of your financial year. So if you haven't run a year end yet, can you run it for, how do you go about running a P&L for your next financial year? That type of query in session 4. Well, session 5 is looking at reconciling your aged debtors and creditors, which is a common query we get when people are looking at month end or year end. And then on, I think it's Thursday, Abby's going to be taking you through the business dashboard. And then we're going to be running a quiz session as well. Now, there are 2 opportunities to attend each of those, so do get yourself registered. If you attend any of the first, or any 5 of the first 6 sessions there, the actual individual topics, plus one of the quiz sessions, then you will qualify for your digital badge. So that will be issued normally within about 1 to 2 weeks of us finishing the webinar series. So again, the link will be included if you haven't yet registered for them. That's going to be on the follow-up email. Right, this afternoon though, this is what we're going to be covering when we're looking at the management reports themselves. So a little bit of a quick introduction to your management reports, some of those common questions that we get asked as well. Might just nip some of those questions in the bud up front, knowing that we're going to be covering them. We'll then run through a series of demonstrations, which is really what this afternoon session is all about. Concentrating on those demos, so looking at what we term the nominal monthly balances, a few different descriptions of those. We'll look at the trial balance, what it shows, how you go about running it. We'll be touching on the chart of accounts, although there is that detailed session that I mentioned Jackie ran this morning. Obviously, the recording's available, but there is the opportunity to attend that session next week as well. We'll run through the profit and loss and also the balance sheet. Again, how you run them, the kind of information that it shows, and where it gets those figures from. So if you are in that position, you produce a P&L report and you're thinking, well, where does that figure come from? Or maybe you produce it to give to someone else, and they come back and say, well, that figure there, what is it? How does it calculate? You'll have a really good understanding of that, hopefully, after today's session. We're going to have a touch on the common questions towards the end as well, and then if there are any outstanding questions, we'll pick those up and explain a little bit more about the additional support as well. Right, okay, let's get stuck in then. But do keep, as I say, Abby and Jackie's on hand. Keep the questions coming. We'll try our best to pick up as many as we can. So the idea of today's session is to look at those key management reports, those 3 key reports, whether you run them as part of your month end, your end of quarter, 6 months. Obviously, you'll probably run them as part of your year end, but you could run them at any time. So we're going to look at running them and explain how they calculate. I've mentioned common queries there. Obviously, we'll be trying to pick that up along the way. If you have downloaded the slides or the PDF of the slides, the links, the odd link here and there will work for you as well. So it'll just take you off to our help center. That information is really easy to find though, should you need it. So that's what we're trying to do. Let's have a look at the demonstrations. We're just going to get stuck in and plow straight into the demonstrations. So we're going to start, if I share my screen, we're going to start by what we term the nominal monthly balances. You might hear these referred to with a few different names, nominal buckets being one or monthly buckets being another. So we find those just by going into nominal codes. And I'm just going to go into a blank record and I'm going to bring up one of my sales nominal codes. So we've got an actuals column. Now you might have a budgets column as well. I've got mine switched off, so you don't actually see that. But it's the actuals column we're concerned with at this stage. So the standard sort of trial balance, profit loss, balance sheet. This is the column that it uses. These are the monthly balances that provide the building blocks for those reports. Now this set of data, we're in the 2024 financial year, so haven't got much entered. It covers the first sort of 4 months in this instance. So as you enter transactions and you code something to say nominal 4,000, that balance would just go against the relevant month. So you can see we've got nothing for August for 2024, nothing in there at the moment. So we'll just close out for a second. And what I'll do, I'll just pop into bank accounts and we'll quickly do a bank receipt to show a little bit of income. Now I need to make sure I put the right date in. So we're going back to the 2024 financial year, which is still the current financial year on my set of data. I'll pop in a reference and we'll pop in nominal 4,000, the one that we were just looking at. We'll do £1,000 plus VAT and we'll save that transaction. Now we'll now go back to nominal codes and again call up nominal 4,000. You can see we've gone from having nothing against the month of August. We've now got that £1,000. And obviously, as you enter transactions, it will just contribute to the relevant month. Now on here, in the actuals column, you've got BF, basically referring to brought forward. You wouldn't really expect to have any brought forward balances against your P&L codes. They would have been cleared down as part of your year end. So the only time you would is if maybe you've deleted a transaction from a previous financial year, you've amended a value for a transaction in a financial year, or maybe you've backdated a transaction. But you wouldn't normally expect to have anything against any of your P&L codes. Balance sheet codes, yes, it needs to bring that balance forward. So as you enter transactions, it's going to go against the relevant month. Now, anything that you enter beyond the end of your current financial year, whatever you've got that set to, will just accumulate in the future field. So again, in the actuals column, but against future. Obviously, when you run a year end, it will just distribute those relevant balances against the relevant months of your financial year. What will be a new financial year at that point? So these monthly balances, a lot of the calculation is done when you come to run your management reports. These are the monthly balances that are used. So when we come to run a trial balance in a moment, for instance, your trial balance will say, right, when do you want to run the report up to? So if we were to choose March 2024 as an example, what it's going to do, it's going to add up all of the balances from brought forward up to and including the end of March. So it's going to add up January, February, March balances. And if there is a balance, it would include that on that specific report. But this is the key. These are the building blocks for your reports. So as I say, they're sometimes referred to as monthly buckets, nominal monthly balances. There's a few descriptions for them. Right, let's move on then. Any questions on that just yet? Keep your questions coming. Don't sit there. Again, as I say, the only daft question is the one that you don't ask. So if you're not sure about something, pop it in there. Right, let's move on then. And we're going to pick up on the 3 management reports. Now, there are different variations of these reports. So if you went into, depending on your level of Sage, of course. So we're just looking at these 3 at the top. So at the top of the nominal codes window, you've got the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. There are other variations. So for instance, if I went into reports and we choose something like the trial balance option, you can see I've got 2 because I'm on the professional level of the software. You wouldn't have the 2 if you're on the essentials level of the software. Profit and loss, you can see I've got a few variations of that. So all I want to do is concentrate on these 3 icons at the top. So trial balance, profit and loss, and balance sheet. We're going to start with the trial balance. So we'll preview it just so you can see what it looks like. And the only bit of criteria that we need to specify when we run a trial balance is when do you want to run that report up to? Now, I did mention earlier that we're going to be running a session tomorrow morning, which looks at running these management reports beyond the end of your financial year. So my financial year ends at the end of December 2024. So if I needed a trial balance or profit and loss or balance sheet as at partway through what will be my new financial year in 2025, that's what we're going to be covering in tomorrow's session. So we're just looking at the current financial year in today's session. So when do we want to run that up to? Now you can see from the drop down, this basically replicates that actuals column. So it goes from brought forward 2024. And it then lists the months. Now it's not the 1st of January for anyone asks or anything like that. It's month 1, January 24, month 2, February 2024. And that will go all the way through to month 12, and then you've got the future as well. So if you run that up to, let's say, the end of March, and click OK, and it'll preview the report for us. Now I'm going to zoom in so we can see this a little bit clearer. So this is the basic structure of the report, exactly what you'd expect. We've got basically a list of nominal codes. We've got the name of that nominal code, and if there is a balance against it for the relevant period, I'll come on to that one in a moment, it's going to show that in either the debit or the credit column. So basically, if a nominal code has a balance as at the end of the period that you specified, it will be included on this report. If we just scroll down, you can see all the nominal codes that have been included on mine. And at the bottom here, as the title of the report would suggest, we've got totals for debits and credits, and they should balance. If for whatever reason your trial balance doesn't balance, then you need to be looking at checking the likes of your data. So let's just pop back up. We'll go down to 4,000 if I can spot that across there. So this is the figure that it's calculated, £173,826.03. Now, when you preview your management reports, some of you will probably look at the reports and think, well, mine don't do that. And it's probably that you've been using it for a long time. But when you preview your management reports, the trial balance, the profit and loss, or the balance sheet, you should find that the figures are in blue, meaning that they're drillable. And this function has been available for a long time in Sage 50. Now, when I say drillable, it means you can click onto it. So if you're previewing your report and you're thinking, right, that £173,826.03, where does that come from? If you click onto it, what it does, it'll open a new tab at the top of this preview window, and it will basically run the report to give you a list of the transactions that make up that value. So this is basically generating a nominal activity report. So it's running it from the start of your financial year up to and including the end of the month that you specified. So I ran mine up to the end of March 2024. So it's running it for that date range. Here's a list of the transactions. Now you'll see, again, questions coming through about brought forward balances and things like that. Again, you shouldn't really have any brought forward balances against any of your profit and loss codes. Balance sheet codes, yes, but profit and loss codes, no. So as we can see, we've got that breakdown. We can toggle between the tabs at the top. So if we wanted to look at it, go back to the period trial balance, and maybe we're looking at one thing, well, we weren't expecting that figure against 4001, for instance. Again, I can click on it. It'll run that nominal activity report again in this instance for the date range as per your trial balance, and it will give me a list of that transaction. So it's quick and easy to drill down if you want that. Obviously, you can export your reports individually or as a batch. You can print them, you can email them, you can send them to Excel. It's entirely up to you. But it's easy to get that information. But the key with the trial balance, as I say, if there's a balance as at the end of the period you specify, it will include it on the report. If there's not, it doesn't get included. So basically, just to confirm that 4,000 nominal code, it's basically looking at the nominal code 4,000. So if I just go back a step, if I go back into the nominal record, 4,000, and basically it's adding up the relevant balances for me. So in this case, from brought forward up to and including the month I've specified. It's adding that up, and because there is a balance, it includes it on the report. So it's a nice, simple report, that one. Any additional questions on that one? Melanie, you mentioned there that there's quite a bit behind there. You mentioned that your previous person has never run things like the year end before. What do you do at that point? Probably your best option, maybe speak to someone on our support team for that type of situation. And it depends what you've entered, what you need to do, etc. Do you need to generate reports, etc., or speak to your accountant? But it'll still let you continue entering transactions. Just to run these reports that we're looking at today, it's based around whatever your current financial year is. Right, okay. If there aren't any questions just at that point, what we're going to do, we're going to move on. Obviously, keep Abby and Jackie busy. Keep your questions coming. See they're frantically trying to pick them up there. Quick question from Hilda there. What is the future showing? Well, future is basically, because I'm in the January 24 to December 2024 financial year, that future balance there is just basically a sum of the transactions that I've entered beyond the end of that financial year. So it will just keep adding that up and adding it up. So basically any balances I've entered in 2025, because they're beyond the end of the financial year on my set of data, that's what it's doing. It's just, they're just, rather than go into the relevant month, they go into what you term the future. So it's equivalent of these, almost like these monthly balances, but for transactions dated beyond the end of my current financial year. I hope that makes sense. And Deborah, you mentioned there when I'm talking about nominal record, what do I mean by that? Well, this is a nominal record, so this is nominal code 4,000. I'm in the record at the moment. Again, few bits of terminology that you may find that people quote, maybe a nominal code, nominal record. It's essentially the same thing. Hope that makes sense. Right, we're going to move on next, and before we look at the profit and loss and the balance sheet, I'm going to touch on chart of accounts now. A lot of you will have been on the session this morning where Jackie covered the chart of accounts in detail, sort of adding ranges, etc. So just as a quick recap, or maybe for those of you that didn't get a chance to attend that one, I'm going to quickly pop into it. So nominal codes and then chart of accounts. Now, if I edit my chart of accounts, and what the chart of accounts is it provides the structure for a number of your management reports. So this one that we're in at the moment, for instance, on the profit and loss tab, within the sales section, it's saying we've got a range of product sales, 4,000 to 4,099. So this is based on a nominal range. So a range of nominal codes. So it's based around a low and a high value. Now, when we run the likes of a profit and loss report, it's going to ask us for a date range. It's going to also ask us which chart of accounts layout do you want to use. So you can have different layouts, as Jackie explained in this morning's session, depending on the level of detail that you want. Now we can see I've got a range of nominal codes here, so 4,000 to 4,099. So when we run the P&L, assuming we're using this chart of accounts layout, what it will do is it will look at my relevant date ranges and it will say, right, on the profit and loss in the sales section, our first description, product sales, we've got 4,000 to 4,099. So it will look at the actuals column in each of the nominal codes in this range, and it will add them all together. And if there is a balance, it's going to include it. Now, you can amend your ranges. It might just be, I could have 4,000 to 4,000, meaning it's only going to pick up that one nominal code then and just have much more detailed ranges. This is just the default, so it adds a number of them together. So it's something to bear in mind when you are looking at your management reports, your profit and loss and your balance sheet, that certain nominal codes may be grouped into sort of subtotals, as it were. Now, again, if you haven't attended that chart of accounts session, we are running it again next week. Obviously, it explains it in a lot more detail. And it's normally, probably after attending this session today, that you might think, well, actually, I now understand the profit and loss report in a bit more detail. Actually, I want the report itself to be more detailed when I generate it. I don't want to have to drill down or trying to find out where the figures are. And that's when you might look back to start amending that chart of accounts. But the idea just at this point is just emphasizing the point that when we run the profit and loss or the balance sheet, it uses that chart of account structure to potentially group figures together. Christine, you quickly mentioned there, can you run a departmental trial balance for each department? You can run a departmental reports as long as you're on I think it's the professional level you would need to be on, and you would just run that from within departments. You can't via the standard sort of icons at the top, but within your department's ledger, if you went into reports, and actually there's not the trial balance there, in which case you would need, just bear with me, if we went into nominal codes and reports, get mixed up as to where it is, it's the transactional trial balance. Now what that will do, it will enable you to run it for a specific department. I'll just make sure that's right. Yeah, so I can run it for whatever date range I want, but I can specify a department. What it won't do is it won't show you, if you run that department 1 to 5, it won't show you the departments side by side. You would have to run them individually. So it would merge the figures if you do sort of 1 to 5, as it were. Right, anyway, back to the icons at the top. So we've mentioned the chart of accounts there. Trial balance doesn't use that chart of accounts, but the profit and loss and the balance sheet do. So let's first of all take a quick look at the profit and loss report. So we'll just preview it again. Slightly different criteria this time. So this time it's asking us not only when do you want to run that up to, but when do we want to run it from? And also, which chart of accounts do I want to use? So if you've got multiple charts of accounts layouts, this is when you can select it. So again, you might have a one that breaks down your sales in a bit more detail. but I'm just going to use that default one that we were looking at. So I'm going to run it month 1 through to 12. So I'll just accept all of that default criteria and we'll OK that. We'll just zoom in a little bit as well so you can see that. Now we'll come back to where the figures and how they calculate. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So what we've got on the profit and loss, we've got our sales section. So obviously you've got a subtotal for that as well. We've got our purchases section, again with a subtotal. And then we've got our direct expenses, again with a subtotal in there. What we then got is a gross profit stroke loss figure. So basically our sales minus our purchases minus our direct expenses. That gives us our gross profit stroke loss. So that's the figure when you see them on Dragon's Den and they're sitting there, oh, what's your gross profit or what's your gross loss? That's when you see them struggle and think, oh, what is that one again? So your gross profit loss in this instance is your sales less your purchases less any direct expenses. What we then have is we have our list of overheads. Now, chances are you're going to have a great big list of these. A lot, certainly, probably a lot more than what I have. But again, you've got a subtotal. And then what you've got is you've got your net profit stroke loss. So we'll get essentially your sales, less your purchases, less your direct expenses, less your overheads. That gives you net profit stroke loss. Now, what you might also have is you might have a taxation section. It depends whether you've used that. If you do have a taxation section, then it would say net profit stroke loss before taxation. It would list the taxation individual values, and then you'll get a net profit stroke loss after taxation. Now, structure-wise, what we've got here is obviously we've got the various categories, pulls that through from the chart of accounts. We've got a period column and a year-to-date column. Now, for those of you that are not too observant, but everyone should hopefully see that, you'll see that at this stage, the period column figures are exactly the same as the year-to-date figures. And it's because of the way the report calculates. I'll show you a slight variation of that in just a moment. But the period column, let's start with that one. So the period column, it looks at that actuals column for whatever period you've specified. So in this case, it's month 1 through to 12. So remember that nominal code 4000 that we looked at earlier? It ignores brought forward in this case. It's month 1 through to 12. So it's looking at those individual monthly balances. Now remember also it uses the chart of accounts, and against product sales we had nominal 4,000 to 4,099. So it's looking at the period month 1 to 12 in the actuals column for each of the nominal codes in that range, and it adds them all together and it's then going to show you what that balance is. So period column is always as per whatever period you've specified. Year to date, on the other hand, is always from month 1 up to and including the month you've specified. Now, because we're running from month 1 to month 12, it means that the period column and year to date are exactly the same. It's pulling through exactly the same figures. It's looking at the same date ranges, the same nominal codes. So it's pulling that through. So just to show you, if we close out of that and we'll access the profit and loss again. And this time I'll run it for, let's do it for August only, where we entered that £1,000 a little bit earlier. So this time you can see the figures are, well, quite a bit different this time. So period column is as per whatever period you're looking, whatever you've specified. So in this case, it's picking up month 8 only because that's what I've specified on that criteria. Year to date, on the other hand, remember, it always runs from month 1 up to the end of the period you specified. So year to date in this instance is month 1 through to 8. So that's the distinction between the two columns. Period, whatever you specified, year to date, month 1 to the end of the period you specified. Now I'll just close out of that again, and I'm going to go back to, I'll just run it for, again, I'll run it for that full financial year, just so we've got more figures to look at this time. So just let's zoom in. Now remember, like the trial balance, where the figures appeared in blue, indicating that it's drillable, meaning you can click on it. So if we're looking at our profit and loss report, and we're thinking, right, this £193,500, where did it come from? We can click on it. Now, when we click on it, what we first of all get, we get this, again, a new tab open at the top, and it shows us this information. So still split between period and year to date. But what it does this time is we clicked on the figure against product sales, and it shows us, right, within that product sales in our chart of accounts, the 4,000 to 4,099, the nominal codes in that range that are contributing to the value. In this case, it's these three. So 4,000, we can see in year to date, it's contributing, well, just shy of 179,000. We've got 4,001, it's contributing just shy of 6,300, and 4,002, just shy of 8,500. But again, these figures appear in blue. So if we're looking and thinking, right, well, we weren't expecting anything against Sales Scotland, for instance. So what we can do, if figures in blue, we can drill down on them again. And this time, when we drill down, it's a bit like when we drill down on the trial balance figure, it produces a nominal activity report. So it's showing me month 1 through to 12 for 2024 in my case. These are the transactions that are making up that value. So I've got that list of transactions. So we can go from top level profit and loss. We can drill down and say, right, that £930, we can see these are the two nominal codes that are contributing to that value. And we can drill down again and say, right, well, against that nominal code, these are the transactions that are making up that value. So we can get at that information very, very quickly. You don't have to go and run other reports. It just, you click, it adds another tab at the top. So very quick to get at. Right, any additional questions just at that point? Keep them coming. I think we're just about on top of those, so you should get your answer, a quick answer to your question, I think. So that's the profit and loss. Now, if you can get your head around the profit and loss and the way it calculates, again, you might think, well, actually, my profit and loss, I don't want to have to start clicking and drilling down. I just want that information to be displayed. So rather than when we click the profit and loss and we preview it, and you specify your date range, etc., rather than having to drill down on this figure here and finding which nominal codes make up that value, you might want that level of information. So Sales North, Sales South, Sales Scotland, you might want that actually listed just on the main P&L, and that's where you need to go back and amend your chart of accounts. So rather than having a range of nominal codes that add figures together, you've got individual nominal codes, and that's going to show individually on your profit and loss report. Right, let's close out of that one and we move on to the balance sheet. So the balance sheet is pretty much the same. Yes, it's going to look at different nominal codes and pull through different balances. It'll show different information, but the structure is pretty much the same. Right, let's click on the balance sheet then. So again, the one at the top gives us the same criteria as what we had for the P&L. So when do you want to run it from? When do you want to run it up to? And also, which chart of accounts layout do you want to use? So I'm just going to accept that default criteria. And we'll quickly run through just the information. You can see the layout's pretty much the same. We've got a list of descriptions, we've got a period column and a year to date. And we'll come on to those figures in a minute as well, how they calculate. So on the balance sheet, we've got our fixed assets section. We've got obviously subtotal for that one. We've got current assets, again subtotal. We've got current liabilities, subtotal. We've then got a further subtotal of your current assets less your current liabilities. Further subtotal, your total assets less your current liabilities. So basically your fixed assets plus your current assets less your current liabilities. We've got any long-term liabilities with, again, a subtotal. And then you've got your further subtotal of your total assets less your total liabilities. Now that figure, your total assets less your total liabilities, should balance, should agree to the total of your capital and reserve section, which in my case it does. So in the capital and reserves, you've got things like share capital, reserves, your P&L calculation that works in the background. And again, you've got a total. So these should be equal. If they're not, could be for a number of reasons. Primarily going to be your chart of accounts, problem with that potentially. If it was a problem with your chart of accounts, you'd expect to see it at the top here where it says chart of accounts, you'd expect it to say partial on the end. If it doesn't say partial on the end and your balance sheet doesn't balance, then you'd be looking to check the likes of your data. So we'll run through the file maintenance check data option, see if there are any issues in there. But again, the structure is pretty much the same. You've got our list of descriptions, we've got our period column, and we've got our year-to-date column. Right, now the period column, it calculates in the same way as what it did for the profit and loss. Yeah, it's looking at different nominal codes, but it's, excuse me, it's picking up the balances in pretty much the same way. So on our chart of accounts, in the fixed assets section, we would have had a range for plant and machinery, and that dictates what nominal code or what nominal code balances are picked up. So it would look at that range of nominal codes, and it would say, right, for the period, we're going to add up all the individual monthly balances for the relevant period for that range of nominal codes, add them all together, and if there is a balance, we'll include it. So for the period column, it's again, like the profit and loss, it's as per whatever period you've specified. So in this case, it's month 1 through to 12. Year to date, on the other hand, it works slightly different date range because it needs to include the brought forward. So that's the main difference on year to date between the profit and loss and the balance sheet. The profit and loss doesn't include brought forward, it works from month 1. Balance sheet, it does include brought forward, but it then runs also up to whatever the end of whatever period you specified. So in this case, the balance sheet, it's running from brought forward up to and including month 12 based on what I've specified. And that's why you've got the difference this time. So remember the P&L, both sets of figures when I just accepted that default criteria, month 1 to 12, both sets of figures were exactly the same. So the big difference here is that year to date, it does include brought forward. Now, as you can see, the figures are drillable again. So we can click onto like some motor vehicles, we can click onto that. It'll drill down and it'll say, right, well, for motor vehicles, these are the nominal codes that are contributing to the period column and the year to date column. So we've got that breakdown initially going to what I would term drill down level 1. It goes down to sort of the chart of accounts level. But you might be looking at that, think, well, why is it negative? Where does that figure come from? So again, you can drill down. You drill down, it produces that nominal activity report. It gives me a list of those transactions. Now, bear in mind the balance sheet does include brought forward, so it might be quite a lengthy report if you've got a big set of data because it includes all of your basically transactions. Let's just get rid of a few of these. Right, now, it was sort of covered in this morning's session. Jackie would have covered it with the floating nominal accounts. And we've had a question already there from Anna, just mentioning about why is your VAT liability? Why is it showing in current assets? Just so happens for the relevant date range in this instance that we've got a positive balance. It could be anything. Your bank account, you sometimes find that with things like VAT liability in your bank account, that it can float between the two. So if you did attend the chart of accounts webinar this morning, you'll be aware that depending on the balance, when you run particular balance sheet report, the figure can float between the two. So your bank account, you might find for the relevant period, it's a negative balance, but actually overall, it's still a positive balance, in which case in the period column, you'd have this positive current liability, but maybe in the year to date, you might have a positive current asset. So this is the movement on the period. So for the period, for instance, it's not saying motor vehicles is valued at £18,208. What it's saying is that's the movement within the period. So in this case, month 1 through to 12. So you might often find in the period when if you are looking at the balance sheet, you might find some obscure figures that you maybe weren't expecting. They might show negatives. So if, for instance, within the financial year, let's say I haven't purchased any vehicles, all I've done is I've posted depreciation only. Therefore, my motor vehicles in the period would then be a negative value. So it's looking at that movement, the ins and the outs of the motor vehicle value for the relevant period. But year to date, because it's including brought forward, it's obviously showing as a positive. So that's the key. The period column, it looks at those monthly balances for the period you specify, the same as the P&L. Year to date, it runs from brought forward up to the end of the period you specify. So Hilary, you mentioned there, so just to confirm there, the year to date on the balance sheet is not just the current year, it's for all years. So yes, that is the case. So what you'll be looking at on a balance sheet as at the end of the period, you need it to include brought forward. Let's say you had £10,000 in your bank at the start of the financial year from previous years. And let's say all you've done is you've spent £2,000 out of that, so you're down to £8,000. What you don't want to see is just minus £2,000 in that year to date. You need to include that brought forward balance. You're looking for the balance as at the end of the period. What's the worth of that account? So just to be clear on that one, year to date on a balance sheet, it includes brought forward. Any other questions? Now, as I mentioned, we are going to be running some other sessions as well. So I did mention at the start, a lot of you will be looking for things like, you get to year end and you start moving into the new financial year, a bit like I am at the moment. My financial year on this set of data, it would end at the end of December 2024. So the likes of my profit and loss as at the end of March 2025 for my new financial year, can't really get at that information just yet from that standard profit and loss report. So that's what we're going to be covering in tomorrow morning session at 11. We're going to be looking at your management reports for a future financial year, but also a previous one as well. So if you need to get at that information, you can do that. And when it comes to getting your P&L for the next financial year, quite a few options for you there as well. Right, okay. Let's get back to the slides. So those two common questions that I want to quickly pick up on. So can I amend the structure of my P&L report? So yes, you can. So you can customize how your nominal codes are grouped on your profit and loss report, or your balance sheet report for that matter. So that's to do with your chart of accounts. And again, the other one that I've just picked up on, I haven't run my year end yet. Can I run a P&L for my new financial year? So that's what we're going to be running tomorrow morning at 11. We'll be repeating that session next Tuesday afternoon at 2. Again, that will last about 45 minutes. So hopefully giving you that full insight into your management reports. So get yourself registered if you haven't already. Links are included on your follow-up email. Right, keep your questions coming. We're going to hang around for a good few minutes just to try and pick up as many as we can. I'll be jumping in with some of those in just a moment as well, if there's any there. So send your questions in there. If you weren't quite with us at the beginning of the session, you just need to click that little speech bubble icon. It'll expand the panel. You'll have access to that little box in the bottom right-hand corner. Pop it in there, click send, and then either myself, Jackie, or Abby will try and pick that up. If anyone does want a copy of today's slides, again, not a lot of information on there, but if anyone wants a copy, you can download those now. The link will also be included on your follow-up email. You will find the detailed information in our help center. Speaking of the help center, loads of great information in there. So knowledge-based articles, support guides, webinars, there'll be little videos in there. And if you can't find what you're after, it'll prompt you to get in touch maybe with our support team. It'll also give you methods of getting in touch as well, depending on what your query is. Copilot was mentioned a little bit earlier as well. Links in very nicely with what we've picked up on today. Copilot, if you've not come across that yet, or maybe you've heard a little bit about it, we're starting to run webinars on that one. Our first one was just last week. If you wanted to find out more about Copilot, what it does, the insights and the information it provides, please get yourself signed up, get yourself registered for one of our webinars. So don't sit there in the dark thinking someone will just tell me. Get yourself registered. Come along. It's a 45-minute webinar max. So in the region of 30 minutes to 45 maybe, depending on how many questions we get. It'll provide insights for you, so top level information on helping you to manage debt, stock, monitoring your business performance, helping you to identify potential issues to help you enhance the accuracy of your data, but also report analysis as well. So it links in quite nicely with what we've covered today. Again, you'll have a much better understanding of things like your business performance and profitability in the insights area after attending today's session. So get yourself registered. The registration links, as normal, they're included on your follow-up email. Just as a reminder, these are the sessions that we are going to be running for as part of this webinar series. So if you haven't yet registered, get yourself registered for those. There was a few questions about the digital badge that we're offering. So if you do attend any of those 5 of those first 6 sessions, you can attend all 6. You can attend them more than once if you want, but you must attend at least 5 of the 6 topics, plus one of the quiz sessions to qualify for the digital badge. Now we've got a little video which just explains a little bit more about the badge. I'll quickly play that, and then we'll come back and start picking up some final questions. Okay, so that little video is just to show you a little bit about those digital badges. Some of them that we've run in the past, and we will be running these going forward as well. So if you maybe this is your first time round, we're trying to get your digital badge. Remember, it's 5 of the 6 topics minimum, and 1 of the quiz sessions that you must attend. The link, if you haven't yet registered, will be included on your follow-up email, so you can get registered for those other sessions so that you qualify. Right, now that brings us to the end of the webinar. I'll have a quick look to see if we've got any outstanding questions in just a moment. But many thanks for coming along this afternoon. I hope you have enjoyed it and you found it useful. Some of you will be thinking, well, I think I knew all that. Hopefully you've just gone away almost like with a pat on the back, a little bit of reassurance that your knowledge is right. Some of you will be very new to this area, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident now. If you've done it before, hopefully you've picked up some tips along the way as well. Either way, hopefully you're feeling a lot more confident in that area. There will be a little survey pop up as you leave this afternoon session. If you can take just a moment to complete that, will take you about a minute max. Let us know what you thought of the webinar. Give us a score, any thoughts, ideas that you want to share with us, pop it on there as well. Your follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour's time. So that will include a recording link for today's session, a link so you can register for our upcoming webinars, and also so you can watch previous recordings as well. I think Jackie and Abby have just about picked up all of the questions, so we'll end the webinar at that point. If you do think of anything, or if maybe you think, right, I'm going to go away and have a bit play with my profit and loss reports. If you want to come back next week and attend the session again, just to sort of embed your knowledge just that bit more, you'd be more than welcome. But hopefully we'll see you on some other sessions soon. For now, we'll bid you goodbye, and as I say, hopefully we'll see you again. Many thanks.